60 Minutes Rewind.
It's well known the French government collaborated with the Nazis during World War II, helping send tens of thousands of Jews to their deaths. What's less well known are the heroic efforts by members of underground resistance groups to save Jews in France. Many of those who risked their lives are now gone or have been reluctant to share their stories. Tonight, you'll hear from 92-year-old Adolfo Kaminsky, who was a Jewish teenager when he joined the French resistance. He had a unique talent he'd picked up while working at a dry cleaner's, an expertise that helped him become one of the greatest forgers in France during the war. Incredibly, he and the resistance networks he worked with created fake identity documents that helped save the lives of as many as 14,000 Jewish men, women, and children.
June 1940, Hitler smashed through the western defenses and overran France.
Hitler's army entered Paris with a massive show of force. German troops marched past the Arc de Triomphe and raised the Nazi war flag over a stunned city. Hitler personally attended the surrender ceremony. The Nazis took control of Paris, but relied on French authorities and police to begin to identify Jews and round them up. As part of Hitler's final solution, tens of thousands of Jews and others targeted by the Nazis in France were arrested and loaded onto trains bound for Auschwitz and other concentration camps. French resistance networks tried to save as many Jews as possible, especially children, giving them fake identity papers and smuggling them across the border or hiding them in farms, schools, and convents in France. Adolfo Kaminsky was just 18 when he began to work as a forger for the resistance.
We had to move very quickly and help these people disappear before they were arrested. So it was just racing against the clock, and actually I called it racing against death.
That's what you were doing?
Yes, day and night.
Kaminsky still has some of the fake documents he made: identity cards, passports, food ration cards, and birth and marriage certificates.
This is one that was fabricated. This is one that was made for this person.
So this is your work? This is fake?
That's all my work. It's all false.
It's incredible.
Oh yes, that's my writing, everything.
Jewish-sounding names had to be replaced with more French-sounding ones, and the word Jew had to be somehow erased. Wow, look at that. That's incredible. What is that?
That is a real one. That is a model we would use.
So this stamp, this word, juif, was the difference between life and death for some people.
Yes. Having Jew stamped on anything meant you were in danger.
Two of the Jewish children who were saved by the resistance network Kaminsky worked for are Edith Mayer and Sarah Miller. Edith was 15 when she was forced into hiding after her father and brother were sent to Auschwitz. What sort of documents did you need in order to be able to live?
Well, in France at the time, you were nothing if you didn't have ID. So I had to have a birth certificate, and I had to have a carte d'identité, a pièce, an identity card.
She showed us a copy of the fake birth certificate that saved her life. They gave you a new name.
They gave me a new name. So instead of Edith Meyer, I became Elise Maillet, which sounds more French. And my fake father was Jules Maillet, and my fake mother was Eliane Marie Chauvin.
It was critical that the papers be absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
If the forger made a mistake.
Yeah, you were done for.
Sarah Miller used her fake papers to get a job when she was 16, hiding in plain sight, working as a salesgirl in a store frequented by Nazi troops. You were interacting with German soldiers all the time at work.
I tried my best to speak as little as possible.
Obviously, if they had known you were Jewish.
Believe me, they would have come and picked me up and sent me to the camp. That's for sure. But they didn't know.
When was the last time you came back here? Adolfo Kaminsky took us to the street where he ran his secret lab right under the nose of the Nazis. It was located in a narrow attic room in the center of Paris, just blocks from the Cathedral of Notre Dame. There, Kaminsky and 3 others used chemicals and other tools of the forging trade to create and alter documents, all the while avoiding detection by pretending they were artists.
Les voisins, ils pensaient que nous étions des peintres.
The neighbors thought we were painters. We had paintings on the walls and paintbrushes and all kinds of colors.
Using everyday items like this sewing machine he still has, he created perforations and stamps. He salvaged metal from junk shops and used wood blocks and inks to create rubber stamps.
Il n'y avait pas de
He also manufactured paper and reproduced watermarks, letterheads, and official signatures.
You can make the document and the signature, but also the stamp and even the raised watermark?
Oui, bien sûr.
Oh, yes, of course.
And the pipe?
Alors la pipe, c'était pour
The pipe was to print with this. So you would apply the ink, and you would put a piece of paper there, and
you rub it.
And then there you go. And just do this. It was perfect.
His secret lab would become one of the biggest suppliers of forged documents for Jews in France, producing, he says, as many as 500 a week. One of the people who worked with him is 93-year-old Susie Shidloff. We met her in a small town near Bordeaux where she has an art studio.
Was he a great forger?
He did incredible things. He had a sort of genius. First, to find very, very simple answers to problems, and also to learn things that other people learned years to learn it in a few days.
Shidloff was 19 years old and a fine art student when she joined the resistance with her sister Herta. She says they spent such long hours in the clandestine lab with Kaminsky that she often fell asleep at her workstation.
In the lab, what was your job?
Everything which has to do with drawing, with imitating handwriting.
She also drew stamps, or in many cases, partial stamps, because they looked more realistic.
Like somebody had just stamped quickly. Yeah. That sounds difficult.
No, it's art.
It's amazing when you think back to how young you all were and how brave.
I think it's much easier not to be afraid when you are very young.
They all knew the risks, but Shidloff says Kaminsky in particular was determined to take them.
It so fits with his character. He could not stand people being oppressed and not being free, and false papers give you the freedom.
Nobody knew that better than Adolfo Kaminsky. When he was 18, his family was arrested and sent here to Drancy, a concentration camp in the suburbs of Paris. Miraculously, after 3 months, they were released. Though they were Jewish, they had Argentinian citizenship, and at the time, Argentina was neutral in the war. But in Drancy, Adolfo witnessed countless others being put on trains and sent to Auschwitz.
For 3 months, every week, I saw 1,000 people be deported. It was horrible suffering.
When you saw people going onto trains, did you know what it meant?
Yes, we knew. In fact, everyone knew deep down. There were some people who didn't want to believe it, but everyone knew. There was just a huge, unimaginable quantity of people murdered.
Were there German soldiers everywhere?
After being released from Drancy, Kaminsky's father decided the family should split up and adopt false identities. He sent Adolfo to pick up their new papers from a member of the resistance. That fateful meeting took place here in front of the Sorbonne University. When the man from the resistance learned that Kaminsky had worked at a dry cleaner's and knew how to remove stains, he got excited.
And he said, "Dry cleaner? Do you know how to work with colors? And do you know how to bleach ink?" And I said, "Yes."
The resistance had been desperately trying to figure out how to erase a permanent blue ink from official documents. Kaminsky knew the chemical that could do the trick: lactic acid.
When you realized lactic acid could work to remove this blue ink, how important was that?
It was very important because that enabled us to use existing identity documents, existing papers that were real, and you could erase things from them without leaving any trace.
It was at that meeting that Adolfo Kaminsky decided to join the resistance.
When he asked you to join, you weren't frightened?
Afraid of what? Afraid of what? The risk was the same if you did nothing. So, at least working in the resistance, I could fight. I was fighting for humanity.
The story will continue after this.
When you realized what he had done during World War II, what did you think?
I was amazed. I was amazed. I didn't understand why he didn't want to talk about it.
Parce que là, par exemple, t'as les tampons de la police.
Adolfo Kaminsky's daughter, Sarah, says she first heard about her father's heroic work when she was in high school. But it took years before he could talk with her about the horrors of the occupation and the memories of trying to save people from being deported to concentration camps.
He still feels guilty.
That he survived and the others didn't.
Yes.
If I couldn't have saved so many people, I wouldn't have survived myself. Most of my friends who were survivors ended up committing suicide. It's just really tough. So many people were treated like animals with no respect. It's just really hard to bear.
By saving others, you saved yourself.
Absolutely.
Sarah Kaminsky wrote a book about her father,
Énormément de résistants.
and they share his story with high school students throughout France.
Do you feel like you know your father now?
I do. Now, yes, I do.
And you're proud of him?
I'm very proud of him. Very. I'm always asking myself, what would I have done?
If you were in his shoes?
Yes, I'm sure that I would not have had his courage.
There's not many people who would have.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. What I like in his story is that a few people can make a difference in front of big armies. So it gives a lot of hope, I think.
In all, 76,000 Jews in France were sent to death camps during the war. Only about 2,500 of them survived. Edith Mayer and Sarah Miller, who went into hiding, eventually were smuggled into Switzerland. To this day, they don't know if it was Adolfo Kaminsky or one of his colleagues who made their false papers.
What would you say to Adolfo Kaminsky or to the other forgers?
They have my eternal gratitude.
They saved your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without papers, you were as good as dead.
Absolutely, I agree with her. They saved my life.
Kaminsky was awarded the Medal of the Resistance after the war, along with a stack of other medals, but he doesn't like to display them. He keeps them in a suitcase under his bed.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yes, Grenoble. They say I saved, how many people was it? 1,500? 3,000 Jewish children?
You never take them out even to look at them?
No, you know, I've seen them. They don't change.
Were you one of the best forgers?
Now I'm nobody. But I think I was able to meet the challenge. I did what I had to, when I had to. And I was lucky to be able to do it.